Howdy neighbors, welcome to another video. Episode 4, oh my god, we're well underway for our advent calendar series for premium format. We have a deck profile for you guys again today. We break it down to see what makes it unique and why you should be playing it. And of course, we'll be having the Mulligan segment and of course the gameplay segment to show you guys kind of one of the cool things that you can do with this archetype. So this was submitted by John, a friend of mine. We've known each other for close to a year or two now actually. This is one of his favorite archetypes. He loves himself some OTT. And hopefully we can showcase you guys a deck that can drum up some inspiration for you guys to give it a go. So first things first, we have Benatwil Witch Yo-Yo. It's the Witch archetype from the V series. This got a little bit of support during the V era, starting up in the G era and a little bit in the pre-G, but it never really got an identity at that point, and now it actually has one. It's centered around Protect 1 as a fundamental mechanic for it. Keeping those Protect 1s in your hand to get bonus power is one of the things that this deck strives for. Then we have Wisteria Witch Zozo. Her skill is being able to reveal any number of protects from your hand to get front row power, and then combining it with Yo-Yo being able to reride during your battle phase makes for some very interesting shenanigans that you can do in premium. Then we have Brilliant Witch Popo. Most of you who are very familiar with the premium format has possibly seen this card in many a OTT deck, but this is one of the strongest cards in its archetype. It's reminiscent of Hope on Damp. If you know that card from DI, this is very similar like it. If you do happen to have 10 or less cards in your deck, which is not very impossible for something to do in premium, especially with archetypes that draw a lot of cards, and OTT is a draw go archetype too sometimes. 10 cards less a deck, this unit gets plus 10k when it attacks, and you can only call grade 0 from hand. So with a combination of another card in your stride deck, this becomes almost impossible to guard unless you have an Elementaria Sanctitude in your hand. Then one of our first rides that we'll be probably trying to aim for to try farm up our Protect 1s is Supreme Heavenly Battle Deity Susanoo. Being able to counterblast one, look at top 2, add one to hand, put one to the bottom in any order. Does give us access to a history stride. Then we have Jade Witch Tete. When this card is discard from your hand during your turn, so also during your battle phase, so combination with Yo-Yo over there, you can Soul Blast one and call this unit to Vanguard Circle. And then it also has an additional ability that when this unit is put in Guardian Circle, so intercepted or put from hand, choose any number of Sentinels from your hand and discard them. Since Protect markers are considered also Sentinels, you can choose any number of Sentinels from your hand, discard them, and this gets plus 20k for each discarded. You'll have some game states where your opponent's not going to allow you to Sentinel for one of your attack, and being able to discard any extra Sentinels since they're pseudo cards anyway, meaning that they don't really exist and they just get removed from game if they end up going to the drop zone. Now we have Cobalt Witch Poo. This unit is placed on Vanguard Circle by riding on a grade 1. Doesn't matter which grade 1 it is. Discard a card from your hand and you get an imaginary gift Protect. So one thing that John did say that this deck can go blind second if you so choose to, but you kind of don't need to. It's not mandatory. Then we do happen to have our cycle card. Administrative Angel has, when this card is boosted, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, choose a card from among them, put it into your hand. Don't need to reveal it. Put any number of remaining cards at top or bottom deck in any order. So you can choose to put both to the bottom, one to the bottom, one to the top, both to the top, any order you choose to, which is pretty nice. And you get to add a free card and also information on the top of your deck, and you can spook your opponent as well. It is also a Vanguard and Vanguard skill, which can be pretty spooky for your opponent to deal with. It also has a hand discard skill. Look at the top 5 of your deck, add it to your hand, shuffle your deck. Doesn't need to be grade 2 or less. Then another grade 1 that we are going to be running in our grade 1 lineup is going to be Citron Witch Moo. This has the ability when it's ruled upon by a witch unit. Sadly enough, it doesn't work with the Administrative Angel. Doesn't have witch in its name. Then you draw a card. Does have another skill on act. Soul Blast 1. Rest this unit. Look at top 5 at the top of your deck. Choose up to 3 cards. So you can also choose 1. You can choose 0. 3 cards in their name from among them. Reveal any of them. Choose 1 card from among the revealed cards. put it into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. If you did not reveal 3 cards, put this card into your soul. So there's some cards that you can see in this archetype. So this does require a bit of soul. Jade requires a bit of soul. There's a couple of your strike cards that require a bit of soul as well. And now for another grade 1 that is also pretty important, our archetype, Divine Sword Aminamoto Kumo. When this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, Rearguard Circle, it's the generic grade 3 searcher that most of the archetypes have gotten from the Stride days. Then during this turn, any cards from your deck was revealed by card ability this turn. So if you happen to have added something and revealed something, it gets plus 5k. Then we do happen to have Arbiter Amino Sagiri, which is a counter-charging Perfect Guard from the G era. Because this deck does have a little bit of counterblast issues sometimes, and this does help, especially when your opponent is trying to damage and not you. Divine Sword Aminamoto Kumo is the other grade 1 that we are running. You're saying, well, hey, that does sound like the same one we mentioned before, but this one is the G era version, which a lot of archetypes played during that era. That you would reveal a grade 3 from your hand, which we play a plethora of. Reveal 1, and then you happen to add the Susuno from our deck to our hand. So we run it as a 1-of. It's not mandatory that we do see him, but it's really handy to have him, especially to get 2 PGs. Then for our grade 0s, Laws and Mages for V. For our V starter, then for our trigger lineup, we are running around like 11 triggers, 11 crit triggers. Then when this, we have our Divine Sword, which is our damage crit. We happen to have our Red Over Trigger. We call it Red Over Trigger, but it's Spiritual King of Ignition Volnout. It does choose one of your rear guards to restand it, or you could choose a rear guard from your hand and call it to Rearguard Circle, which is also pretty good. The restanding is really handy in situations where you drive into crits, or especially if you stack your deck to put a crit on top and then your OT, you could choose the OT, the crit unit with the OT on it, and restand that and do a lot of devastating damage to your opponent. And then in combination with Brilliant Witch Popo, if you have very low cards in your deck, you can make things very difficult for your opponent to guard. Then we do happen to have another soul crit, which is Weather Girl Kendall. She goes into soul, GB1, 10k to Van, draw a card. Then we do happen to have Goddess of Water Dragon, Totanama Hime. She is your grade 3 heal trigger, which does give you really good defensive capabilities against decks that do want to do first stride. I was very happy when these cards came out, and I'm still going to be happy till this day. Then we have the stride crit, Celeste Witch Toto. She is your stride crit. You're not going to have a whole lot of situations where you're going to be able to utilize this crit, sadly enough, but you do want to run this at max so that you don't have to discard your grade 3s, because as John had mentioned before to me, that you do not want to really discard a whole lot of your grade 3s, because you do want to have witches in your hand so you can rewrite, and also you do want to have witches on your rearguard circle so you can utilize all of their effects. It's pretty important. So having these stride crits is very good. Then we have Forbidal Surrogate. Forbidal Surrogate, it does give you a way of being able to get them out of drop zone, especially if your opponent's been retiring the whole game, or if your opponent's been sort of like damage controlling you and don't want to really give you pieces or resources, or allows you to draw cards or whatever. Forbidal does give you a way to be able to do that. You get to search your drop zone and deck for grade 3s and grade 4s. The grade 4 does go to your hand and the grade 3s get called. They do both need to be different named though. And then our order roundup is going to be Elementaria Sanctitude. Then off to our G zone, it's going to be Harmonics Messiah. Guardian Ticket is too good. Our History Stride slot is going to be Soaring Auspicious Beast Kirin. Fantastic card. It does allow us on hit to look at top 2, add a card, put a card to the bottom of the deck. Then we have Happiness Gathering Dragon King, which does allow us to flip up a card in our G zone and then equal the amount of cards face up in our G zone plus 2. We get to do a combination of calling them, call or reveal normal units, and then you add the triggers to hand, activating their abilities, which is really nice. One thing to note is that if you do happen to reveal over trigger, you just get the power, you do not get the draw, because you do not get to resolve the additional effect. You only get to resolve the card itself, and you do get to add the OT to hand. We do happen to have Still Water Festival deity Ichikishima. This is one of the namesake cards that we are focusing around with this deck outside of Ichi right now until we get more support, and we do not want to have the other Ichi come back now, do we? That spooky lady. Her skill allows you to Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 to draw 2 cards to flip up a copy of herself. Then The other ability is to flip up any card open in your G-Zone. At GB3, you do get to give Guard Restrict to yourself for the whole entire turn, that your opponent is no longer able to use any G-Guards or guard with grade 0s from their hand. Then we have Son of Eternity Amaterasu, which is one of our G-Guardians that we're running. When it's placed on Guardian Circle, if you happen to have 4 cards or more in your hand, you do get plus 10k power, and its on-play skill is Soul Charge 1. Look at the top of your deck. You could choose to put it top or bottom of your deck so you can end up stacking some triggers. Very nice. Then we do happen to have Sterling Witch Momo. With her ability of being able to turn a card face up in your G-Zone, you can discard up to 3 cards in your hand. For each card discarded, 3 of your front row units gets plus 10k until end of battle. If you discarded 3 cards at the end of that battle, standard unit gets drive -2. It does give a way of you being able to poke some PGs out of your opponent's hand, cycle through some of your dead cards that you might have into your hand, and also make your front row a lot more devastating for your opponent to try and stop. Then we do have Excite Battle Sister Bravois. Her ability is to Counterblast 1, you draw a card, and you reveal the top of your deck, and it allows you to keep it on top or put it on the bottom. And if you do happen to reveal it as a grade 1 or greater, she does get plus 5k shield. And then another cool niche card that I would love to see people experiment with a little bit more if they can help it is Lord of Guidance, Wakarehime, which she has the Oracle ability. So Oracle is a mechanic, just like how we mentioned in Ichikishima. You do need to have 5 cards or greater in your hand to be able to utilize abilities and effects or continuous skills to be able to resolve if you have your Oracle abilities. You need to have 5 more cards in your hand. So her ability is Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, choose a card face down with the same name as this card from your G-Zone, turn it face up. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you do, draw a card and choose a card from your hand to put on top of your deck. So you can have some really cheeky situations that you probably swung with some rears, or you swung with Waka first, Counterblast 1, draw a card. You could put like triggers on top of your deck. You could put your OT on top of your deck, or heal trigger if you do want to end up healing. So you could play this instead of playing something like Reverence Rush, because a lot of Keter archetypes are playing that card now too as well, which allows you to put heal triggers on top. This does give you a way for some long game capabilities. It is a GP2, so you can't really use it on your first ride, sadly, but it is one of the directions that you can go for sure if you do want to try to close out the game on your opponent. And it still works with a very particular combo I'll be showing you guys in a moment. Alright, and here's a general rule of thumb of what you'll be wanting to aim for your mulligan. It's going to be C-Train, which Mumu is going to be one of your best mulligans that you can aim for, or for the V version, which is the 8k Divine Sword Ame no Morokumo, which allows you to search through your deck, add some cards, discard a card. Usually you're discarding irrelevant cards you're not going to need anyway, and any of the grade 2s are usually pretty good to ride into. It's not that bad. Tete is probably one of the worst ones you could probably ride, of course, since it does give you a real cool combo extender that you could utilize, but if there's no choice, you have to do what you gotta do. Alright, and here we have it. The combo that I'll be showing you guys will be involving the Ichikishima line. The other ones I'll kind of want you to figure out for yourself, experiment and have fun. So one of the ones, the gameplay and idea is going to be on your GB3 turn. You're going to either have 1 or 2 CB that you'll need. One of it is mandatory for Yo-Yo for sure, but the other one is completely dependent on what you're looking to do. So here we have Ichikishima. Her skill is Oracle to give you Guard Restrict during that turn, but she does not need to be face up on the field to be able to do that. You actually can replace herself with another grade 3. So what will happen is during game state actions, your Zozo or whatever witch unit that you end up rewriting on top of your Vanguard, it can no longer exist in your soul as a unit, so it returns itself to the G-Zone, but you still get to keep the Guard Restrict and you still get to play on your turn. So you swing with Ichi first, Swinging for 27, whatever triggers you end up getting, you give to either Yo-Yo or Popo or any other unit that's on the board. Popo is just a demonstration what you possibly could have on board. Of course, we happen to have a high amount of cards in our deck. You could utilize a card like Administrative Angel to be able to see something on top of your deck or whatever, but it's not really too necessary. Like any other grade 2 is also fine too as well. And of course, you'll have like a plethora of protect markers in your hand. So then first, second, and then one more. So we do happen to have another witch in our hand that we can utilize now because of it. So then we counterblast one, return this back to deck. We can choose to rewrite this, which is nice. So you can only resolve this effect if it's the first attack during that turn. And of course, we do discard 2 cards. And if you do happen to have a Tete in hand, you can choose to call it, especially if you ended up losing a rear guard that your opponent might have retired from an ability. So that's always nice. So then this gets power. You do get another protect marker. And then your front row gets an additional like plus 20 to 30k on a front row outside of any other triggers that you've seen. So now we do another additional drive check again. So twin drive, it's a little bit dry, that's okay. And then we do have this column line of 20 or 30 depending if you hit any crit triggers or not. And then we also have this other rear guard attack pattern here too as well. And we have a bunch of extra sentinels in our hand that we utilize. We still probably have like orders in our hand, like Forbidal for example. If our opponent end up clearing the board, it creates like a very annoying situation to deal with over and over again for our opponent. So that's it. The deck is and that's it. The deck is fairly simple, very innovative, and I think this is one of the coolest decks that anybody could really ever pilot, to be honest. Obviously, it does have the caveat of being the Ichi dot deck, but how you get there is like half the battle, and it being able to do this in comparison to just like stalling out, slowing down the game, and eventually getting to the 10 cards and sort of like a bit of inevitability, where this does have a little bit of interaction and your opponent has a little bit of agency and can kind of have, both you and your opponent can kind of have fun. And that's one of the cool things that I like about this series. I want to try to bring in a bunch of decks that, even though they might have very fixed win conditions, that you guys can have cool ideas that you can use to get there. So without being said, I want to thank you guys for tuning in, stopping on by. You have always made this a pleasure, and till next time.